I really wanted to run to champion for my neighbors, not just in West Sac now, but my neighbors throughout that district of communities that were at various stages like mine in state government to try to grab some of that low-hanging fruit, make the funding formulas match our local communities, and at the same time advance the biggest climate action changes, the biggest moves forward on civil rights and reproductive health and reproductive freedom. So to bring together championing the big agenda that we all care about in California, but also delivering the real results that there's nothing like being a mayor for 20 years that teaches you stuff's got to work.
Right.
It has to make sense.
Hello and welcome again to Sacktown Talks. Today I'm glad to be joined by Christopher Cabaldon. Christopher, glad to be seeing you here again. What's going on?
It's great to be here.
Great to be seen, yes.
Yeah, take a break from the road.
Exactly.
I've been out in six of California's greatest counties for the last 10 months.
Wow. So what are you currently doing?
Well, I wrapped up my 2 decades of service as mayor of West Sacramento 3 years ago, and now I'm running for the state senate to represent Yolo, Solano, Napa, a little bit of Sacramento, a little bit of Contra Costa, a little bit of Sonoma counties.
Right. That's amazing. You just say like 2 decades. It doesn't seem that long.
It
But
just
like
rolls off the tongue, right?
When you told me like, what was it, 1998 to 2020?
2020.
2020.
Yeah.
Wow. You know, for people who were like born, you know, in the 90s or before the 90s, it doesn't seem like that long ago, but a lot happened in that time span.
A lot happened. I mean, when we started, like the city incorporated in 1987. It had been this like been around since the gold rush, but it was really 3 or 4 different communities that were close to each other but not connected, and then they gradually grew towards one another. They didn't all like each other,
Right.
but ultimately in the mid 80s they said, look, you know what, we don't get along, but our overlords in Woodland and Davis who run Yolo County, we need to free ourselves and
Right.
declare our independence. And so they did. And so it became a city in 1987. And at that point, like you couldn't necessarily see all the way through the glass of water. If you looked through it, the water was, had a lot of stuff in it. Law enforcement was kind of a challenge because we were just like playground for the sheriff's department. There was nowhere to shop. And there was just this sense that after 150 years of potential, that stuff just was never going to get much
Right.
better. It should, but we had all these assets, but people would write, they would write like, Lennar Homes Vista as their return address, comma California 95691, instead of saying West Sacramento,
Right.
because there was a sense like there was a sense of disrespect and a bit of hopelessness. So it was a really very different place than the West Sacramento today. But back then it was tough.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. Like, so like, River Cat Stadium, neighborhoods built, a lot to kind of go on your resume. Can you kind of tell us kind of like what are some of the key things you remember about being mayor that you're kind of most proud of?
Well, it's pretty much my whole adult life is spent, kind of collaborating with my neighbors and others to create one of the most profound transformations in America. So it's really, and I so one kind of thing I get to walk out of my door every morning and see, like this is what helped to create all of this, and see people smiling and using the park and biking down the street, stuff like that. It's really profound. But the River Cat Stadium, Sutter Health Park, or Rayleigh Field for most of its history, was kind of that was my first breakthrough moment. And it was just a few days after I got sworn in as mayor, and a couple guys wanted to build something, ballpark, and I'm like, great. I'm looking for like what's going to be the defining thing of my year, and so this is a great project. They couldn't get it done in Sacramento. Right. We didn't have any professional baseball here, and I said, so what team you got? Oh, we don't have a team, but we're going to be close on that. Well, where do you want to put this? Well, we have here's a map that where we'd like it to go. Do you have some land? No, we don't have any land. How about money? You got the money to do this? No. But we were still young, and I was brand new, and I thought, well, this is still it's a cool idea. Like the worst that can go wrong is we just don't get it done, but we got to run for it. So we did, and like it was one of these like against all odds, David versus Goliath stories, and we pulled it off, and it totally changed the psychology of the city and its reputation and our sense of like what's possible and then how to do it. Because one of the things that we did when we opened that was to look, okay, we cut the deal, but the deal only works, like the bond payments and everything, only works if we open the stadium for opening day next season.
Right.
No one had ever built a AAA professional ballpark in America in 13 months. So I learned very in a crash course, like how do you cut through red tape? Like, what are the regulations that really matters? How do you negotiate deals fast with security and all of that? And we pull it off. And after that, that kind of became our defining asset. When IKEA came to the region, that was kind of the next project. We didn't put any subsidies on the table because we didn't have any money.
Right.
We're one of the poor cities in the region, but we said, look, we'll open you up in less than 2 years, twice as fast as anybody else. They said, sold. We'll go there. We can make a subsidy up in that much time. So really, you can't go anywhere. The whole Southport neighborhood, the entire riverfront, all the investments in the north side of the city for jobs and shopping and housing, our Main Street, really everything about the city is transformed except for the people. Like everybody that was there before, pretty much we're all still here. It's just now we have twice as many neighbors.
Yeah. No. So what was the population of West Sac when you started?
It's 28,000 and now it's 56. So
it's
pretty much exactly doubled. Yeah.
So here's one thing I don't understand. So I grew up in Elk Grove, and Elk Grove used to be a really tiny town, 17 miles south. And like, I remember when I left for college, there was like 20, 30,000. Come back 4 years later, there's 200,000 people. There's 200,000 people who live in Elk Grove. And I don't get it. And I was kind of like, why? Like West Sacramento is closer to downtown. And a lot of these communities in your district are kind of closer to cities, but you don't see the same growth that you see in like Folsom, Rockland, Roseville. Kind of why is that? Why isn't there more growth in YOLO as there are in like, Placer and El Dorado County?
Well, I think a couple reasons. So one is YOLO as a county has always been skeptical about growth, especially Davis, but it's true for the county as a whole too. Mm-hmm. It hasn't really been true in West Sacramento and not very true in Woodland either. But the market has always been untested and unproven. And so when we started to build in Southport, for example, those homes sold really well, and they were great neighborhoods, and that's the main reason why we doubled in population was that growth in that half of the city. So once we did it, it started to take off. We don't have the land area that Folsom has added on, for example,
right,
or that Roseville's been able to annex. We can't annex much because we have the bypass on one side. And this place called Sacramento on the other side of the river. So we can't really go that far east and west. And we decided a while ago not to go north and south because it would mean having to protect new areas with gigantic expensive levees that we couldn't that nobody could afford, as well as disrupting a lot of habitat and ag. So we're partly limited in that way. That said, we've been one of the top 15 housing producers in California for the last 10 years, every year.
Wow.
Per capita. And we're by far the big dog in YOLO County in terms of housing production. It's just we're recycling land. Old gas station or old popsicle factories, is now something else.
Right.
Or an old one-story thing is now 5. Or a waterfront that had been largely abandoned back when, because it used to be all industrial uses that needed the water for cooling and to dump stuff out. Now is a thriving district. So it hasn't been as fast in some sense as like Lincoln or Elk Grove, but pretty close in percentage terms. And I've really liked it because if we had just added 100,000 people, it would totally have changed the character of everything about the city, and it would have been massively unaffordable. And we have a much more diverse housing mix than a lot of the other communities that you referenced. So we're experimenting and playing with lots of more dense urban styles of development as well as the suburban ones. And when you do that, you won't get as much development coming in at thousands of units at a time, because banks and developers are like, we're not sure this works, but we're going to give it a try. But we're not going to build 10,000 all at once.
Exactly, that's interesting. So kind of going back to the stadium, there's talks about the Oakland A's are trying to move to Las Vegas, and I guess they have like nowhere to play next year. And you see this kind of playing out in the media, and they're talking like, well, the A's should talk to Sacramento about using the stadium. I'm like, well, isn't that West Sacramento Stadium? How does that make you feel? You guys are kind of forgotten that it's even your stadium.
It's it doesn't bother me as much as it used to. I mean, it's annoying, but we're good friends with Sacramento now. And Sacramento County actually was the key financial partner to make Sutter Health Park or Raleigh Field happen. So it wouldn't be there if it weren't for their collaboration with Sacramento County at least, and its people. But it's right. But that's right. I mean, it is in West Sacramento. It is in YOLO County. It has the potential, even back then when we were looking at it. The challenge then was Sacramento wanted to build a full-blown major league stadium, and they weren't getting any bites. And the challenge that we all saw was, look, according to all the numbers, the market data and everything else, like the Sacramento market would be the top minor league market in America. Like the income, the interest in sports, the competition, all of that. Sacramento is the best place to build a minor league ballpark. And Sacramento would be at the very bottom of the major leagues. Like, could probably eke it out, maybe, but unanswered question.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the kind of the crossroads that we were at as a region back then, and I think it worked out. I mean, it was the right call, and it also allowed us to marshal our resources for the Kings and some of the other regional assets. But yeah, it would be terrific to have the A's come back home to the stadium that we used to be their farm team.
That's funny. So you've decided to run for Senate. What kind of spurred you to kind of seek this office, and kind of what are you hearing from the voters?
Well, before I was mayor, I worked in the Capitol. I was the chief consultant with the Higher Education Committee and chief of staff to the Appropriations Chair, and served in a bunch of the administrations of all the governors since the 90s. So I get state government, but I also have just completed a couple decades leading a transformative change in my own community. So I also get the local, and the local is really not just about local government. It's about small business. It's about bigger business and employers. It's about people and activists and the full range of people, of actors in a community and in a state that make change happen. And we had a lot of success on homelessness, on housing, on education, on environment, like all of those big issues. But often we found other places were struggling, and we had struggled. And often that struggle is because state government doesn't see places like West Sac or Dixon or American Canyon or Calistoga. Like, the policy debates are really heavily emphasized the most urbanized coastal areas. But a lot of our opportunities on housing, our water supply, everything else, like, it's in communities like in the 3rd Senate District. So I really wanted to run to champion for my neighbors, not just in West Sac now, but my neighbors throughout that district of communities that were at various stages like mine in state government, to try to grab some of that low-hanging fruit, make the funding formulas match our local communities, and at the same time advance the biggest climate action changes, the biggest moves forward on civil rights and reproductive health and reproductive freedom. So to bring together sort of championing the big agenda that we all care about in California, but also like delivering the real results. That there's nothing like being a mayor for 20 years that teaches you stuff's got to work.
Right.
It has to make sense. You got to build a strong tax base. People need jobs. They don't want you changing the rules on them every 5 seconds. I mean, there's just the fundamentals about how you deliver on the big promises that we're making to the people of California, and I think too often not delivering.
Yeah, it's interesting, kind of like the tale of the two cities here, just the river crossing and kind of the different issues kind of you see. As mayor of West Sacramento, was that a full-time job?
No, I mean, yes and no.
Yeah.
I mean, in some, like in California, almost all mayors are not full time. There's like less than 10 that have it as a full time position. And in most places that totally makes sense. I mean, but the basic idea of it is, from 120 years ago. Well, the mayor's job is to have a council meeting once a month, bring the police chief in, say, how's it going?
Right.
And then you go home and that's it. So it totally made sense for it to be like that. Today, you're running a transit, you're trying to figure out transit system, you're complying with all these environmental rules and laws, you're trying to, help businesses navigate tax system, infrastructure finances, like the craziest thing ever, right? It's a much different job than it used to be, but especially in a city like mine, when you're trying to go from being the most disrespected, second poorest city in the entire metro to one of the most dynamic. But that requires your full attention. So yeah, for me, I treated it that way, but it's not that way in cities of our size. There's not a single city in my district that has a full-time mayor.
And so, like, during that time, were you working in the legislature?
No, so this was a long time.
Yeah.
So over those 20 years, I had a bunch of jobs.
Yeah.
So I started off on city council. I was working in the legislature. And then I was appointed vice chancellor of the community college system for California. So did that for several years. I've worked at started a small business, a consulting firm in Sacramento that works with foundations and education and business groups and others around policy change, not lobbying, but around the dynamics around policy change. We worked a lot on college and career pathways, for example, or work-based learning for high school students, projects like that. And then I've served in a variety of appointed positions to most of which don't really pay, but at all. But they're still they're still part of the day. So I think of them as my employment, even if they don't really help with the mortgage much.
Yeah. So you got, I guess, a broad experience base on many different topic areas.
Yeah, it's really complicated, but it's really cool because what I found is like you're because I work on economic development and transportation and housing, but also on water policy and habitat protection and climate, and then also like every higher ed, K-12 education, workforce development, civil rights. I've done some international work too. I just do all of the things in part because that's how things land in a community. Like you don't just get to pick for the next year I'm just going to work on environment. Well, that doesn't work in a city, but also because I find that the best way to be creative is to have all those different like conceptual frameworks, those different lenses. And sometimes what I'll do is like, okay, I'm facing this challenge. Like, how do we redesign workforce development? Well, if I was an air quality regulator, how might I look at like what are the gaps in my thinking about workforce development? And I just found I did that with with water quality and air quality first to kind of test, and then I started to apply some of those same principles. And you get smarter, but you break the mold much more, and you're much more ready to question the status quo in useful ways. By being able to draw on other policy areas, but also to see, look, in higher ed, which has been one of my key areas since I was working in the Capitol, like we sometimes get all excited. Hey, guess what? We just took the FAFSA, the free application for student financial assistance, which used to be 25 pages and now it's 22. Good for us. Or we'll be debating.
Use a smaller font.
Yes, we'll be debating for 25 years whether or not we should require community colleges all to call Econ 1, or should they allow to be called Econ 2 or Econ 101 or whatever? Right. Should everybody have the same common numbers? So that's like what we're debating. Then I'll go start working with my friends in the climate space. And they're like, we want to ban gas-powered vehicles by Thursday. Right. And so when I go back to the higher ed folks, I'm like, hey, we need to kind of up our ambition here, right? We should be thinking about bigger things than just like taking this form down from 30 pages to 25 or something like that. So I find it's very helpful in seeing what often are blind spots if you just live all your life in electricity policy and you never venture out and think about other issues.
Right. Yeah, that's fascinating. That's funny. So what March primary coming up here? 30 days? Ballots are out. Kind of what's the next 30 days looking like for you?
It's now it's even less. So yeah, the ballots are out. This is a wild district.
It is. I was just thinking about it's like a really cool district, and it's kind of like a very big district, but a lot of similar communities, very ag based, right?
Yeah, very, very much ag centered. And it's kind of in 3 or 4 different clusters. So there's like the Delta region of the district, which is the Contra Costa, Sacramento, and parts of Yolo and Solano County, which are a lot of ag issues, but also recreation, water, environmental protection, and then issues around housing and jobs housing balance. I mean, all of those issues are present there, and then the Interstate 80 corridor and the areas around that, including West Sacramento, but all the way down through Solano County as well, with a whole set of issues around traffic and community and housing and economic development, as well as air quality and this whole Flannery project that's out to California forever, and then wine country. Right, so you've got these 3, very distinct places in California, all wrapped up in one district. So it will be no surprise that most of my everyday is just driving around place to place. Oh, here I am in Calistoga, now I'm in Roner Park, now I'm over in Woodland. Now I'm here in Dixon and Vacaville, and trying to. And the funny thing is, in each place is like, we're a small town. How do we make sure we're not going to get forgotten in the legislature? I'm like, that's the thing about this district. We're all small.
Right. Yeah. Like, what do you have? Like Fairfield, maybe?
Fairfield, Vacaville, Vallejo, they're the biggest, but each of them is like 10% of the district. So they're significant, but there's no dominant force. And so the feature of the district is it's a lot of winters. It's a lot of Isleton. It's a lot of American Canyon and all of that. So I love both getting a chance to give voice to those communities that I think are often not heard. But also then to be out on the trail, like what's going on? Like,
and just like the political like differences of these communities and the people. Like, I don't know, I just like love Davis, right? Everyone thinks it's like very left, but then it's very libertarian too. And it's
Yeah.
kind of like a lot of these farmer communities, like it's not one size fits all.
No, not in the least. I mean, there are communities that when I'm knocking on the door, they're like, West Sac, that's what we want to be. We're an old industrial town, maybe ag industrial or something. So we're trying to change, and we want to get the same kind of economic development and growth and do it sustainably and all of that. Then there are other communities, and you mentioned Davis, but that's a great example. But there's others that are always like on lists of like places that are close to perfect.
Right.
Like everybody wants to live there. It's great.
That's what I was wondering. Like, I was just like, my mind blown because like my son plays soccer, and we've been spending a lot of time at soccer tournaments in Davis. And I just like occurred to me, I was like, there's like no new housing developments in Davis. Right. Like they have all this land, all this space, but there's like people want to live there, right?
Yep.
But there's no new housing, and I was like, that blows my mind.
Well, I think that's what especially in the capital, like people have these visions about what Napa and Calistoga and Davis are like, and they are they definitely the brands that they have built over time. They are correct. They're great places to live with really dynamic economies and great recreation and schools and all of that. They also have real challenges, and probably right at the top of the list is having enough affordable places to live for folks that work there, for the the soccer coach that your daughter absolutely loves, right. For your own kids coming out of the Air Force, so even the places that are the most successful in the district have real profound challenge. Not to mention wildfires and insurance and flooding and all the other ones.
Napa's a great example, right? All that commuting from Vacaville Fairfield for employment and things like that.
No, exactly. So when I talk to them about West Sacramento's growth, look, we're one of the best at producing housing, including affordable, and also we didn't add any more farmland or habitat being bulldozed in order to do it. You don't have to. That doesn't have to be the choice. And I think for most of the last two generations in Yolo, Solano, Napa, and Sonoma counties, that's been the battle. Like you can either be for the environment and for farming, or you can be for housing. And communities in the district are trying to figure out for themselves, but also trying to figure out how to navigate state laws that make it hard to get that choice right.
It's interesting. Like now we're just kind of talking about, Sacramento, West Sacramento, the differences. One thing I, just kind of notice is there's a lot less homeless across the bridge. Kind of what's your secret over there?
Well, I wish there was like a single thing, but I mean, you're right in that, like, so in the 2000s, we cut unsheltered homelessness by 58%. And then in 2010s, we kept it flat for the entire decade. So we're one of the big success stories on homelessness in the broader region and in Northern California more generally. And I think it's a mix of a couple things. So one is we've been really, really innovative. And I'll give some examples because every single politician says that. So we were the governor, the Project Roomkey and Project Homekey. Roomkey was based on a project that we did in West Sacramento a couple years earlier called Bridge to Housing, where we bought a motel, partnered with the county, delivered intensive wraparound services, and like 80% of the people that were moved from a camp on the riverfront, totally unsafe, into this motel, and given all the all the best services, 80% of them made it in permanent housing. So that was one of the inspirations for Roomkey, and we were one of the first grantees in Roomkey as well. Similarly on Homekey and permanent supportive housing, the Downtown Streets program, which is in Sacramento also, now it's in Davis too, is a great example of a smaller scale initiative they're doing around building paths to employment, but also dignity and like visibility for folks who are trying to be seen in order to reintegrate into society off the streets. So we've been doing a set of these strategies, and it has an effect. At the same time, we pay attention to, like, we need to keep our community safe for both folks who are unhoused, but also for everyone else at the same time. And so when we have an encampment on the river with lots and lots of fire hazards or potential threats to the levee, crime, a lot of police calls being called, we got to do something about it. And so we've done those things in tandem. So, we'll do something really exciting and innovative on the services side, but we'll also enforce. And it's just that balance because the problem is everybody always wants to say, I found the true cause, the one true cause of homelessness and the one true answer. And that's just not like that. And so you've got to execute on all of those pieces. And when you do, at least you have a better shot of making a difference.
That's fascinating because it is a stark difference on two sides of the river. So you know you're going around. You got a really big district. You know how's the campaigning? How are you reaching out to these different communities and kind of getting your name out there?
Well, it's so I've been one, you do it for months and months and months, right? If
Right.
you're just starting now, it's too late. But I mean, so much is just being present, like being immersed in communities authentically. You know, just going to meet with people one on one in various towns in the district. Go to the crab feeds and the rotaries and
Hmm.
the the hospital fundraisers and all of that. Talk to people on the street. Walk neighborhoods, make the phone calls. Respond to the inquiries. So that's a big part of it. It's true everywhere, but it's especially true in a district like that where they're not coming to you,
Right.
right? You can't just have your one big annual event and everybody comes to
You got to
you.
go to Yountville.
That
You
is
got
not
to go
happening.
door to door.
People in Yountville are like, "What? I have to go all the way to Fairfield?" And I'm like, I'm going to go after that. I'm going all the way to Discovery Bay in the southern part of my district. So you have to become the local for each one of these communities, and really want to you have to feel that. And coming from what was a small town and what is now just a small medium sized town,
Right.
I know that feeling, and so I know how to connect, and I love that. It's the reason why I was running. So that's obviously a big part of it. Of course, we're also in the mailboxes and on and
Right.
everywhere else in the district as well, because you can't reach everybody at the door or at the Little League game. And so you got us in a district that's just spread out. So you do both.
What are some of the most memorable, I guess, you know, back and forths you've had knocking on doors?
Well, in Napa Valley, I was surprised because it was the first time it happened. Now I'm no longer surprised, but the first
Mm.
time it happened, I knocked on a door in a mobile home park, and the resident there wanted to talk about wildfires. And so I started talking about my own background on wildfire management and working in state government on it and that sort of thing. She's like, no, I want to talk about insurance for
Oh
mobile
yeah,
home
it's a big
parks.
issue.
And she English wasn't her first language, but insurance was.
Mhm.
And she had every detail down. And it reminded me so much when I ran for city council in the first
Mhm.
time in West Sac, where I'd go to the neighborhoods that were the most invisible, like weren't you never saw a Rotary president from this
Right.
neighborhood or a city council member, and people they were up on it. They knew what their questions were. They had ideas. They had the data. They had the evidence. They'd done their research and all of that. And it really was. It made the case so strongly around both the issues that she was talking about, but also like what it takes to engage people in politics in the first place. So I will never forget her,
Mhm.
because it was just a powerful reminder, not just on the issue, but that we often in politics think about, what's the 4-word thing or the 4 bullets that we're going to
Right.
say over and over and over again. And what I love about the door or the Rotary luncheon or whatever, you get a chance to really talk and hear and learn, which is really the whole. I mean, campaigning is not just about spreading your message.
Right.
It's about understanding the ideas, the thoughts, the pain points, the emotions, the hopes of the people that you're representing.
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, they always say like, you know, your views on things change kind of with your experience, right? And I
Mhm.
remember reading this book about Jess Unruh, and he, you know, was running for governor,
Yeah.
and they said he really found his like voice and his messaging like right towards the end of the campaign. Kind of, you know, how's your journey been on this campaign, and kind of how is your thoughts and feelings on certain issues kind of evolving as you're reaching out and talking to people in your district?
Well, I think the one area that I didn't talk about much at the beginning of the campaign that I do now a lot, just because what everyone else tells me is this notion about we got to deliver,
Mm.
you got to make that was obvious to me as mayor, but from the most progressive folks to the most conservative folks in the district, farmers and nonprofit leaders, like everybody had this the same message, like, hey, I really support this state goal on climate or housing or whatever. But man, I did all the things. I applied for the grant. I got the money for our small business. We're ready to connect to the grid, and we got told that they can plug us in 7 years. I'm like, what?
Might not be alive then.
Yeah, or it's talk like at the very beginning of the campus, talking to somebody like working on an affordable housing project, and they're like, yeah, we're trying to do this thing, and it's like our city council finally came around. They're supportive. They were all the threats from the Attorney General kind of helped, and then we went in to apply for the grant money that was supposed to be available, and then we found out that there's this, that you get like 10 points if your project is within walking distance of a transit line that runs every 15 minutes. Well, there's not a single 2 inches 2 square inches in my district that have 15-minute transit service.
Right.
And so it's that was the same rules apply, if you're in Woodland as if you're in downtown San Francisco, but the tools that the state's made available don't really apply
Mhm.
because transit service near housing is the right policy, but how do you get there? And you don't get there simply by only giving money for housing to people that already have 15-minute transit service. They're never going to get 15-minute transit
Right.
service without the housing. So I've really been, I think, over the course of the campaign, both from the stories I've heard and then knowing my own experience as mayor and talking to other mayors in the district and others, is that's where so much of where we're not hitting our goals and our targets or advancing our policies, that even folks that agree with us are getting frustrated that we don't focus enough in state government on actually making it work,
Mhm.
and making it viable for folks that are trying to get out of their car or provide more housing or what have you. We have to do our job and not just ban things, mandate things, and declare 10-year goals and call it a day.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. That's the one thing they said about these 12-year kind of election cycles, these term limits, that you actually, implement stuff and kind of stay around long enough to see them work. But it doesn't always, 10 years goes by pretty quick.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool that you're kind of focused on, getting it done and kind of marrying kind of logical things together.
Well, and the other reason is that, like, especially given it's 2024 and our democracy is on the line, all of that, the number one thing. You asked me what I was doing while I was married. The other one I didn't mention, I was professor at Sac State in public policy, and so what I know from my teaching and from the research is that the number one thing that drives voters or citizens' trust in government and democracy isn't what you normally think it would be. Most people seem to think it's, does government do the things that I want it to do? Like, does it does government agree with me? Does democracy produce the things that I want? And it turns out that is not the number one thing. It's not even close. The number one driver of trust and faith in democracy and government is, does government do what it says it's going to do? Period. Even if it's not something that I like, which in some sense is the definition of trust. You
Right.
said you were going to do this. Did you do this? Even if I didn't want it, do you do what you say? And so that's why this notion of we really have to focus on making it work and delivering as we're setting big transformational, aspirational, life-changing goals. We have to get that done in order not just to make it implementation possible, but also in order to rebuild faith and strengthen our democracy.
Like looking towards the election, kind of, I guess, how do you look at it? Like, I always kind of look at it like analytically, like, how many votes do I need? Like, how many people are there? How many voters are going to be? Kind of, have you done that and kind of thought about, like, here's the race, it's top two, like, how many doors do I need to get to? Kind of, what are the numbers kind of in your mind look like to kind of successful run?
Yeah, we definitely do that every day.
Yeah.
I got a dashboard with all the metrics, and so I use them. I use them less now than I did at the beginning of the campaign. In part, just because I realize, I'm a better candidate than I can't. It's hard to be a candidate and a campaign manager at the same time, and so I started to realize, like, there's only so much I can do with the metrics. I got to let the campaign team really focus on that while I go out and really connect. Having said that, though, yes, we know our numbers. Given the because there are 5 candidates in the race.
And
So
how many Dems are there?
there's 3 Democrats and 2
Three.
Republicans.
And is it enough Republicans where it's, Repub Dem most likely, or what?
It's hard to say, right? I mean, some of the polling data I've shown suggests that the more likely outcome is a Democrat and a Republican in November, but it could be either one. Who can say? Only the voters. So we don't know. So in some ways that's good, because it means you can only game it so much,
Right.
no matter how much you try, and you just have to get out there and present your case. But it is that dynamic of 5 candidates, 4 of whom are actually campaigning. The one of the Republicans and then all 3 Democrats. You've got to pay attention to your metrics, because the district is too big, and it's too expensive. It's half of it's in the Bay Area media market, half is in the Sacramento media
Right.
market. You just can't do all the tactics that you would do in say a mayoral campaign or a Vallejo City Council campaign. That's not what this is, and so those metrics really help you to focus on proven strategies that work and knowing where you're at across the district.
Yeah, and like the priorities in like Vallejo and Vacaville are very different than the rural areas. So that's fascinating. I just
Well, and from themselves, right? So
Yeah.
that's the I mean, the Solano County in particular, in part because of the media market split, but other factors as well. I mean, Solano's in some sense, it's like two counties cohabitating with one another. You know, Vallejo and Benicia on the south, and then Vacaville, Dixon, Fairfield, Sassoon on the north, and Rio Vista kind of, you know, on its own in the delta. And so, you know, really understanding the differences between those communities is important, both to be an effective senator, but also to be able to connect in an election. Say, yeah, I get who you are, as opposed to you're just like a generic average Solano County resident.
And I guess that's what's kind of like cool about you and your experience, is that it kind of marries both, right? You have that kind of urban experience and that rural experience. So.
Yeah, so I mean, we're the urban center. West Sac is the urban center of Yolo County, and we're right next to Sacramento. So I know both of those worlds, and we're suburban at the same time, right? So we're all of those pieces. But I also know that you can't just look at Yolo County and average us, because Davis, Woodland, West Sac, Winters, and the rural parts of the county, we're all so distinct. We just happen to have been drawn into a county together, and we've made it work, and we love each other. But we're not there because we didn't sign up because we all have the same DNA. Right. It's because we're neighbors. And I think it's really important when you go to Napa or Solano or the rest of the counties in the district, that you just understand what these places are.
I remember I Googled the population of Yolo County, and I was just like amazed about how low it is. Like, I was just shocked that like not more people live there.
Well, they're coming, but you know that Yolo is almost 20% of the Senate district voters, and so it's like almost half again as big as Napa County. And so that just goes to my point, that I made earlier, which is that it's all small, right? And I happen to think that's the great thing about the district, and it's because so many of California's statewide issues, whether it's housing or water or what have you, they are, you know, certainly the urban coastal areas have a big footprint on them. But there's so much potential and so many challenges that are not being seen right now that are happening in communities, not just like the 3rd District, but around the state. Yeah.
So you said you've done polling. Are you encouraged by the polling?
So we haven't done any.
No, you haven't.
But yeah, well, I hear enough of the rumors about it, because I think we've counted up 12 or 14 polls have been, you know, that we've had people report in. I just got this poll. Yeah. So there've been a lot of them. And yeah, they're encouraging. I think all the polls have given us the edge in the race. But it's which is positive, and it's definitely better than the alternative.
No one said, hey,
no one's ever said, "Oh my God, I can't believe it, I'm up in the polls." But you know, the important thing to remember is like it's a big district, and being up in the polls is no easy path to victory, because up in the polls doesn't mean you're at 80% in a district like this. There's no way for anybody to be known unless you get out there and campaign, and then make the case in this final month.
Right. Wow. Well, I know you got a lot of doors to knock on and a lot of Go TV action, so we'll let you get back to the campaign. But thank you so much for taking the time to tell us a little about yourself and your campaign, and best of luck next month.
Jared, thanks so much. Right. Great to be here.
Great. Thanks.